Just wanted to thank everybody for coming out and, pretty formal, not anything too over the top, but appreciate everybody taking time out of their day. It's up to Craig, he'd be on the beach somewhere, he'd steak and lobster, but he didn't give us a very big budget, so. We didn't even know if he was gonna be able to make his own funeral, because it's until Thursday. And we're pretty lucky he made it to his own funeral. We also thought that was a joke and he'd be late to his own funeral, so. Pretty informal. I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate some of the great memories that Craig gave us in his life and some of the time that we got to share with them. We're gonna have Echo give the opening prayer for us. I'm gonna go over some parts of Craig's life and my mom and Plant and Elliot. Anyone who wants to share some memories are more than welcome to come up and do that. There's some things in the back that they want to do. So there's some rocks back there if you want to write some memories, something about Craig on them, and then you put them in the box. Sorry, it's literally. Oh, you can do that. And some paintings. So let that go. Dear Heavenly Father, let's just say we thank thee for Craig's life and that we get to celebrate it today. Please bless that we can be able to enjoy and that we can be able to have comfort as we mourn the loss. We thank thee for everyone who traveled out here today and in the name of Jesus Christ. So I guess some of the grandkids are gonna sing a song at the end too, so but the world needs more praise. In the world of hate, discrimination, prejudice, and mistrust, Craig was not of those things. It's time to evolve. Give someone the shirt off his back, even if it was in the middle of a blizzard. He didn't care what you looked like, what race you were, how much money you made, or if you do anything in return for him. Get that joy out, help people, and seeing the joy it brought to people by helping them. I can remember one time we invited Craig over to my son's birthday party, and of course Craig didn't have much money, guys. But he did take the time and went to the dollar store and he bought 25 little different items. And he took the time to wrap every single one of those. Put them in a giant box for my son. He had the most fun opening up each and every one of those little presents. The kind of things that Craig would do was just go out of his way to do little things like that. Of course, many times Craig needed to help himself, but instead he would turn around and give you something else. He was never afraid to tell you that he loved you, even if he barely knew you. And he ended or started every text message that he ever sent with "Have a great day, a great week," or whatever holiday it was. He genuinely wanted to see everyone happy. He had a contagious laugh, or maybe you could call it a cackle, that could be almost overwhelming at times. He would do that every time he would poke fun at me, whenever he was uncomfortable, or just a way to end a sentence. As everyone knows from Craig was very creative, as you can see here. Mom, art, paintings, definitely like use bright colors. He would constantly win awards from the local grocery store, from Rollins and all the different places, and he was sure to make. Thank you. He was sure to let me know how much better he was than me. It seems like Craig was never competitive unless it was to rub it in mine and Elliot's face, which was one of his favorite pastimes as a child. Even then, he had a kind soul, didn't take much punishment from the meanest mom in the West to make Craig feel remorseful. Completely opposite for me. Even from a young age, Craig had an interest in hair. Mom wasn't very happy when Craig ruined her curling iron trying to curl his Barbie's hair. He never knew it was plastic. Being just 1 year apart in school, me and Craig got to do a lot of things together. The Blackburns and the Taylors both had kids about our same age. Weren't at our house, we were usually at either one of their houses. Bramwell's, a lot of the local kids here from the church. So we had a lot of fun. Our earliest memories of playing basketball with playing my ball with John Ball. There's a video of me and Craig running up and down the basketball floor, kicking each other as we run up and down the floor. No one on the other team had to do anything to us. We did it all for ourselves. That nemesis never changed as we grew older. The Blackburns and Taylors were some of our best friends, and we met the Blackburns, as they would save a seat on the back of the bus for us. Instant friendship when you can have the back of the bus. Some of my fondest childhood memories were hearing Grandpa's truck coming around the corner and knowing that he was coming to get us to help him catch horses, move hay, or some other chore. Dread. We would all race and find a hiding place somewhere in the house. We always knew that it would take a little while for Grandpa to find us, but someone would always start laughing every time he'd start to yell at us. We always knew that it would take 3 times as long to catch the horses as we get them in the corner, and Elliot would always let one of them run past them. He's scared of the horses, but if anyone knew my grandpa, he didn't have the nicest horses. So we did have a lot of fun going on wagon trains with Grandpa, meeting lots of friends, being with Grandpa as he really didn't give us much supervision when we were in wagon trains. So me and Craig also got to explore musical careers together. We took piano lessons together, and we had been playing for quite a while when Clint finally got his mission call. For some reason, someone decided it would be a good idea for us to display our newfound talents at this event. Craig went first. He made a few mistakes, and I laughed at him as he sat down. It was my turn, and it couldn't have been any more disastrous. I think I screwed up 20 or 30 times, and all I could hear in the background was Craig laughing at me. Needless to say, this was the end of our musical career, and Craig never let me live that down. During childhood, me and Craig were both friends, and we're some enemies at times. Might be responsible for some of Craig's early childhood injuries, including a broken arm, a collarbone, a burn mark that left a scar, and a quilting tool that left a nice gash in his leg. I think he had it coming, but later on in life, he would laugh and he would just tell me how I was the devil child when I was young. We spent many summers riding bikes with friends, floating the canals, having sleepovers on the trampoline, and making fun of Elliot. Who would have thought we got all the good genes? In high school, Craig began to really focus on how he looked. Some things never change. He was focused on weightlifting and looking better and continued on with his passion for a lot of years. I remember us quarreling and mom telling us to go outside. I was ready to go. But Craig, he didn't want anything to do with it. I remember him saying to me, "You might not like your hair, but I like mine." I guess I got the last laugh on that one. We had many fun memories in high school playing basketball together and being on the same team. My fondest memory of us playing together was when we played Hillcrest in the conference playoffs. We were down by 1 point and there was about 3 seconds left on the clock. They put me in to throw the lob pass to Craig to make the game-winning shot. Pass was perfect, can't deny that. Craig missed the first shot, got the rebound. Second shot, got the rebound, finally put in the third shot. Later on, the newspaper came up and asked Craig, "Hey, Craig, what was going through your mind as you were taking that shot?" "Death, murder, suicide." Needless to say, they didn't ask Craig for any more quotes. After for leaving a few years after high school, we both ended up back in Iowa Falls living with Clint, who got engaged shortly after. So me and Craig decided we decided to help each other go into debt and bought a house together and some of the fanciest cars for a couple of 20-something-year-old kids who had jobs barely above minimum wage. We thought we were pretty cool. Craig always loved his car and loved to put any kind of accessory that he could into his cars. He was into being fashionable, and he definitely had his own style and loved to accessorize. It was hard to frame fashionable things at our height, but even if it was too small, he would find a way to squeeze into it, and he made it work. Craig's obsession with hair continued through this period. He had a mullet before mullets were cool. But he dyed the top half blonde. He would spend more time curling and blow drying that mullet to make it look perfect. It was more time than I'd ever seen even any woman spend on their hair. Who knew he was a trendsetter with the mullet, though? He would spend much of our time cruising around the cruise of Iowa Falls and meeting lots of friends who had cool cars too. We're positively getting the cops call on us and would invite anyone that was interested over to the house to party. There were so many times it was standing room only, and the bathtub was filled to the top with cold beverages. Many people don't know that Craig loved to dance. He always felt that was another way to express himself, and he didn't care what anyone else thought of his dancing style. He constantly talked about the roommates and friends that we met during this period of our life, and we are also grateful for Elliot, who was our designated driver at times. I never knew how much money Elliot was making off of us, but our friends just kept giving him money for gas because they had no idea that they were already giving him money. He also loves to do the hair and makeup and that hair. Thing about Craig is you never told Craig how you wanted your hair. He told you which hairstyle was going to look the best on you. This eventually led to Craig getting his cosmetology license and moving to Florida. He loved Florida. Beaches, the hot weather, and working at the salon there. He constantly would tell you how awesome it was, how much he wanted to go back there. So he can finally go back and send some of his ashes back there to his friends. So finally have a place there again. Over the last few years, I enjoyed my phone calls with Craig, reminiscing about parts of our lives. I'll never forget seeing my mom and dad's living room, having Craig tell me how I should raise my sons. That is an irony. I don't know what it is. The last significant amount of time I got to spend with Craig was coming back to mom and dad's birthday party. We had some good laughs, had some in-depth conversation. He would constantly text me and start off with happy whatever day, love, little big brother. That was my nickname, little big brother. He always ended with love you, 5 different emojis. I love you too, Craig. Say hello to Trent for all of us. I'm glad you're a part of my life. I'll always remember the joy that you brought to the world. The world needs more Craigs.
Can't do that. Starts off on the wrong foot. Okay. Craig believed in God. He said he always said his prayers. He had a different God than I had, but he always said his prayers. And he always had a lot of friends. He had more girlfriends than he had boyfriends because they always had woofers that needed put in their trunk. They had makeup that they needed put on or their hair done. And so they would come over and Craig would do all of that for them. And they were absolutely thrilled. When Dad died, he said, Mom, you're going to have to talk at Grandpa's funeral, so I need to do your makeup. 1.5 hours later, we had the makeup on for Dad's funeral. Well, no, you need light yellow highlights here, and I never saw such a makeup case as he had to do makeup with. Craig was always creative. One of the creative things that he did was the treehouse. Anybody remembers in Louisville the treehouse? Every piece of wood they could find from everywhere. We have a great big Chinese elm tree down at the bottom of our pasture. We had got a cake of nails to have for storage. Craig used the whole cake of nails building this treehouse. Now it couldn't be just a regular type treehouse. It had to have carpeted floors. Thank you. And he did took the best carpet out of the house that was rolled up and put that in the bottom of the treehouse. And it was 2 stories. It couldn't be just a regular 1-story treehouse. It had bamboo curtains. It was just the pride and joy of Craig. You didn't have stairs where you went up to it. You had a rope that had knots in it, so that you had to be a certain strength in order to be able to go from knot to get up into the treehouse. I think that treehouse cost us about $400 or $500. And Craig had 2 special friends. When Hiram Blackburn came to town, Hiram said, "I have never had a friend." Hiram was very shy. He had a tick in his face. He really struggled for friendship. And so Craig became his friend. And then they picked up Mark Bramwell, who also became his other friend. And we called them the 3 Musketeers.
Maybe it's a little lower.
Maybe just a little lower, Mark. Maybe just a little. So Craig decided when he was a sophomore in high school, he said, "Dad, you know that old pickup out there? Can I repaint that pickup?" Dad said, "Well, yeah, Craig, go ahead." So he took it out. Nobody had given him any lessons. He went over and talked to Dad a little bit. Dad says, "Well, you got to fill in the dents with a little Bondo." And yeah, well, he kind of pumped the Bondo over the dents, and they would work on that pickup. There were 5 or 6 of them that would come out in the evenings. They would set up their pickup party, and they would back up, and every one of them would turn their radio in their car to the same station and open up the trunk. My China would jump up and down in the cupboard from all of these that they were out there. They sanded that for weeks and weeks and weeks. They painted it blue. That was Craig's favorite color. He loved blue. So they painted it a beautiful color of blue. Lee and I came home one night, and I told Lee, I said, "There's somebody else's pickup in our driveway." He said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, that one's got a sunroof in it." Craig didn't know how to put in a sunroof. He just went and got a sunroof and cut a hole in the top of the pickup and put the sunroof in, and it leaked till the day we sold that pickup. Anybody who's had a nickname by Craig, would you hold up your hand? If he's called you a nickname. Yeah, he called people nicknames. Lee was Smedley, and Elliot was Smelliot. Clint was Bagley. Bentley.
Craig was very yeah.
Craig was Bagley. He was Bagley. But he had these names that he put on. And Donnetta's daughter, Donna Lee, she was Donna Schmid. And so he had these names, and he never called you by your right name once you got a nickname. He liked music, all kinds of music, and Craig was a good dancer. He got that rhythm from the Rock family, not from the Hinkleys. And so Craig was a really, really good dancer. And he loved this music. So when our son Trent died, we went to the mortuary, and here was his casket, and he said, "Oh, that is so plain." And I said, "Craig, it's a casket." And he said, "Well, couldn't you pinstripe it or something? No, I mean, so that it at least had a little pizzazz to it." And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess you could." But I said, "This one's not going to be pinstriped." And he said, "Well, I think that we need to put a solar panel over his grave with a speaker that goes down inside of there, so that when the sun shines, that he can have this music, boom, 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 and I thought, oh, that'd just be wonderful. Just driving to the cemetery and hear, boom, boom. When Craig was young, he wanted a piano. He begged for the piano. I took Diana Barney with me, I don't know how many times to the piano, because I knew nothing about piano. Finally decided it would just be better to buy a piano. So we bought a piano. He was so thrilled. And oh, this is just the most wonderful piano, Mom. This is so great. Sherry Clayton gave him lessons, and they played, well, they quit right after Clint's farewell, after they made such a disaster. And they're playing at his farewell. When he was in scouting, he refused to take hunter safety. Lee always had this thing about you have to take hunter safety. He said, Dad, I'm never going to shoot Bambi. I am never going to take hunter safety. And his dad said, you never know when in your life you might need to know how to disarm a gun. So he said, you have to take hunter safety. I'm not going to. Well, your driver's license will be associated with that hunter safety course. He took hunter safety. One night, Lee and I had gone to a wedding reception, and we came home, and Eric and Craig had been jumping on the trampoline, and he had karate Craig in the stomach, and Craig fell back and hit his arm on the bar of the trampoline and broke his arm. So we came home, took him to the hospital, and the doctor put a cast on his arm, and he was quite muscular through his forearms from playing ball. Pretty soon he could take the cast and he could just slip it off. So he would slip the cast off, shower and do whatever he had, and then put the cast back on because you couldn't be seen with a broken arm without the cast on. So a year later, he was out in the barnyard with Lee, and he was walking down a pole that was leaning up against a concrete block, and he was balancing himself on this pole like this and lost his balance and fell on the other side, and his arm broke, and it came up, and it just bent like this and just came right up against the top of. Lee comes in the house, he's took Craig back up to the hospital, got another cast on him. And the first time he said, can we have ice cream? So we taken him for ice cream. So the second time he said, can we go and have ice cream? And we said, if you want ice cream, do not break your arm. We will take you for ice cream. Craig had a natural wave in his hair. Every woman would have killed to have had that kind of wavy, beautiful hair. And he loved showing his hair off. But when Eric was talking about his mullet, he bleached this down through here, and then he shaved the sides like this. So it was black on both sides with the white in the middle. Yeah, it looked a lot like it's skunk. When he went to Florida, he had a friend down there, and he called her Mama. She was the same age Lee was. She did nails in the salon where he was at. And she was his drinking buddy when they would go out and do stuff. And he'd take her by the hand and he'd say, come on, Mama, let's go. So when Lee and I went down there to visit, we got to meet her. And she was just the sweetest lady, and she just loved Craig. She said, he is just the funnest guy I've ever been around. She said, plus that, he's a good dancer. When Craig was in Florida, he had this pink Suzuki. Okay, I mean, you're talking a hot pink. And her name was Susie. All of his cars had a name. So she was Susie Suzuki. And when you got in Susie and you went for a ride, it was with the death threat that you got in this car because it had no floorboards. So when you got in, you had to put your feet on the frames of the car, and it had no seat belts. And Craig would just tool off down there. It amazed me this car even ran. I think it only had 3 cylinders that it ran on. But it kept taking him everywhere. But all of his cars have been named. They've all had a name to them. Craig came to live with us. Craig loved chocolates. I worked in the wintertime from October to Christmas for a chocolate shop down in Mesquite. And so the winter before, I had boxed several 1-pound boxes of dark chocolates, and that I could give to my friends for summer or whatever. And One day he came up and I was in the TV room and he came in and I said, Craig, what have you got all over the back of your shirt? He said, no, it's paint on the front. I've been painting. I said, no, you got something on the back of your shirt. Go look in the mirror. So he came back and he said, oh, it's chocolate. What are the chocolate doing on the back of your shirt? Well, I knew that those chocolates were probably really old and they would kill whoever it was that was trying to eat them. So I was saving all of those people. So he had eaten 5 pounds of chocolate, had eaten all of the chocolates, but the one box he fell asleep on the bed and had rolled over him, and that's how he got the chocolate back in his shirt. So Craig was quite the character. The first painting he ever did was this one over here. It's called Norman Rowe up in Jackson. And one year for Christmas, I said, I want you guys to do something special. I want you to make me all your Christmas presents. I don't want you to buy anything. I want you to make me. So Lee and I woke up about 2:30 in the morning. We could hear this pounding. And I said to Lee, you don't think they're out in that treehouse again, do you? And he said, well, it's pretty cold out there. It's about -20. And I said, yeah, well, maybe they're not. Just got back to sleep. I could hear this pounding again. So we got up for Christmas morning and we were having Christmas and Craig kept falling asleep. And so when it was time for Craig to present his present, he said, oh, just a minute. He said, I have to wait for my paint to dry. So he had stayed up all night long painting this painting over here. And he decided to make his own frame. Well, we had some Italian groove maple that you make gem floors out of. And he was trying to pound nails into that Italian groove maple, and that's what we could hear was him trying to, and it was bending all of his nails all the time because the wood is so hard. So what he did was he took and glued the frame on the outside of the painting. And my mother came over about 5 years later and she said, you need to replace that frame. That is just ugly. And I said, not on your life. That is Craig. But those are just a few of my fun memories of Craig. Oh, and the sweater. The boy said we have to talk about the sweater. Craig crocheted this sweater for me. Okay? It weighs almost 20 pounds. I want you to see that my name is on the back of the sweater. When you look at it, you can see the patsy that's on the back of the sweater. Then on the collar of it, it says #1 mom. Here. But he spent a lot of time, and he said that he had his roommate be the model for him and his crochet the sweater. The only problem is here are the sweater. No, I'm gonna get another tear at the top.
Grab that over now.
I'll get after this roommate. Perfect. Mom, I want you to stay home. Sure, I can wear it. Anyway, this was a lot of great stuff.
But I told my kids one time that the older you get, the closer your tear ducts get to your eyes. So hopefully I don't cry, but that's hours. I know. I'll try to speak up. So I didn't even know my name for my first 16 years. I was either Bucky or Birdman. Buckalophagus. Yeah, Craig had a nickname for everybody, so I had lots of nicknames. Not very endearing nicknames. Bucky was because I had Bucky. Birdman is because I had a big nose. Yeah, so I was Birdman. So anyone's ever seen the cartoon back in the day with Birdman? He has this little bird that squawks. And Craig would say, "Hey, Birdman," and then he'd squawk. So that was Craig. Um, I have several stories, and when I share stories, I think stories about people's life, you get to figure out what that person was, for better or for worse. Um, so Craig was very strong. He was a very strong individual growing up in high school. I remember Eric and Craig getting in a fight over a pair of jeans and shorts, and I've never seen somebody pick up a 6'9" person and slam them on the floor like Craig slammed Eric. And it was a pair of shorts, and they were fighting. Um, there was also another fight, a laundry room, and I can't remember whose bum went through the wall. It was either Clint's or Craig's, but one of them went through the wall. My dad passed it, but there was a perfectly sized bum in the wall. Um, Craig loved the gym. He would wake up and go to high school, work out 2 hours, go to school, work out for 2 hours. But the ironic thing is when we were digging ditch, Craig would work for 5 minutes and then sit down because he was tired. And we used to tease him, all that muscle, and you can't dig ditch for more than 5 minutes. So we did have a good time with that. Craig loved cars, but he'd always make the cars his own. We went to a car show a couple weeks ago with my parents and Eric, and very nice cars. I'm like, this is what Craig should have done, but his cars were never quite the car show classics. He had a pink Oldsmobile that he spray painted. It had roof liner. I can't remember what else it had in it, but it was definitely a Craig car, and it always had a name. Um, he had the Mitsubishi Eclipse. I call it the Heartstopper because his stereo was so loud that it would stop your heart. And you're sitting in the back, and he's like, "Isn't this great?" I'm like, I got to get out of the car." And we try to pile on that. Mitsubishi Eclipses are not for 3 tall people or 4 tall people. They do not fit. So I don't know why I ever had that car. That car broke down so many times. He replaced the transmission 3 or 4 times on it. And finally, at the end, he had the alien monster, is what I call it. It green and neon. Sorry, green and neon. Clint gave him the car, and nobody could recognize the car after Craig got hold of it. It had spoilers going here. It wasn't the same color. Neon hubcaps. It had a big agent right in the middle. So that's why I call it monster. Craig was very artistic. Of course, you saw some of the paintings. The coat. I'm glad my mom brought that. Even as a little kid, he made stuff. We talked about biker shorts back in the day. He liked to make biker shorts. Um, he was a barber even before he went to cosmetology school. You can ask Eric about that. My mom showed up, and before it was school, Craig tried to do line his and Eric's hair. So I had that. Surprisingly, I was a blonde once. Craig dyed my hair. My mom showed up, and my hair was blonde. So, and apparently he liked to dye his hair too. So, um, he always had a style, always at home. So he rocked the mullet. Yes, he had a mullet for the longest time. He did a lot of types of jobs. Mostly he liked to work in the food industry. If anyone remembers with the Ricky Diner, Country Diner, that's what it was. Country Diner. Craig worked there right after high school, and one of his favorite things was frozen yogurt. He'd come home and he'd have a gallon of frozen yogurt because he'd empty the machine and then he'd put it in the freezer. It was like, oh, you can have as much as you want. And then he'd come home the next day and he'd have a gallon of frozen yogurt. So he ate a lot of frozen yogurt. Surprisingly, he also had this thing with ice creams. North Chuckwagon, we went there to eat, and Craig had one plate of food, and he had all you can eat ice cream. Unfortunately, he didn't make it out of ice cream everywhere. So, my face. So Craig was also a teaser. One of the things he did when I was little, he used to pin my arms down and he would let the drool almost hit my face and then suck it back in. That was his favorite pastime to do to me. I was going to talk about the shocker. He had this thing where he punched, and it wasn't necessary to hurt you, you just couldn't move it. So he did this little thing called the shocker, we call it. And he kind of paralyzed you until one day I poked him right in the belly button. My finger went through his belly button and it oozed after that. So I broke his belly button and never did the shocker out. Poor kids. He did have a caregiving side, which was, I remember crashing my bike. Sorry. Oh, tears come. Crashed my bike and had a bunch of food. And he took care of me, bandaged me up and took me to bed. So I just remember that memory. I'm a hunter and fisherman. Craig was not. However, he did go with the Jardines because he enjoyed the company. And he's like, I'm not going to carry a gun. I said, well, aren't they going to make you carry a gun? He's like, yeah, but I'm not going to shoot anything. I'm just going to walk around the woods. So that's all he wanted to do. But he liked to fish. My brother Trent took him a lot fishing. And he fished a lot. I don't think he ever ate it. Him and Trent would just like to go out and fish. So he was a hard worker sometimes. We talked about the ditch, but when he did projects in the house, like sanding the spoiler in the basement, which had fiberglass all throughout my mom's house, he spent hours and hours. When he had a hobby, he'd work hard at it. He spent hours detailing the truck in the yard. He'd wash it, shine the rims, wash it again, wax it. He'd spend hours doing that. Talk about the tree house. This tree house was unlike any other tree house. It actually had levels. There was 3 levels to it. So you could sleep 6, 7, 8. How many people did we have up there at one time? 9? I don't know. There was a lot of people up in this tree house. And that's where some of the hardwood floor went. Like, there was a hardwood floor in the treehouse. So Craig always wanted to be famous. He did have some famous things that happened. It was on I can't remember if it was People's Court or Judge Judy. We were trying to figure it out. They pay you to sue people. And so Craig had this bout with an old girl he lived with that took all his car payments, and so they went to court. And Craig was there in court, did everything, but Craig was too nice. They wanted Craig to be mean to her, and Craig won the case, and they ended up, paying Craig and the girl. And it's like it was just a free trip to New York. So that was part of his famous one. The other one, I picked him up from North Carolina, and the reason why he was in North Carolina is he decided to do 80 and a 20 through a school zone. Unfortunately, the cops started chasing him, and he said he couldn't stop the car. The reason he couldn't stop the car is he said the devil had a hold of the brake pedal. So he couldn't stop the car and he got ejected. And I didn't know this, but Eric said, as when he got ejected and the police were trying to cop him, he said, "There's demons in the car, there's demons in the car." So apparently he was a little famous in North Carolina. Craig was accident prone. We talked about a couple broken arms. We didn't talk about the broken arm on the haystack, but he did fall off of a board about this high, fell into the hay and broke his arm. 3 feet off the ground. But he did break his collarbone off the horse. Eric kicked him off the tramp. Nice karate chop. It was a nice double leg kick. Sent him flying off the trampoline. Craig was only competitive with Eric for the most part. We talked about running up the basketball court, and there is a video of them. I think they're on offense, and Craig and Eric are kicking at each other. I don't know what happened in the game. I just know that they were mad at each other. There was a time when we played in the yard, and I can't remember if circumstance was one of them tore the other shirt, and they ended up getting in a fight, and then they both took their shirts off and just played basketball the rest of the time because they didn't want to tear their shirts. So we talked about the hot tongs. Eric was cooking tortillas on a stove and touched it on Craig's arm and burned Craig. And he's like, "What'd you do that for?" And he's like, "I didn't know." He also had a fork mark in his forehead from Eric. So we talked about Craig being a money manager, and he was not. There was when I was growing up, I don't remember everything that happened. I just remember Craig had $50 and he wanted a remote control car. And so he sent his little brother to bring me on a bicycle, Louisville. And I was going up, and for some reason I didn't put the money in my pocket. I had it in my hand and I lost the $50. And Craig was upset, but not too upset. And then we had a community cleanup, and the three of us spent most of the community cleanup looking for that $50 from Louisville to Rigby. He never got it. So, you know, there's the stories define us, and I'm glad to share these stories. So I'm going to turn some time over to Clint, and then after that, everyone can share stories they have heard.
So you get to go last, the one that's kind of shocked. Fortunately, Craig's looking more like me. It's amazing. Troy's not there, but if you look at our pictures as we're younger, we look nothing alike. And then there's Craig, Troy, and I that look like almost twins now. And I don't know why that is. That the bald fat gene really comes out in the later years. I've known this day's been coming for a long time. Craig passed away quite a while ago, and trying to figure out how to really celebrate his life. And I'm glad that my family shared a lot of stories about him. Someone once said, when you go to visit a gravesite, there's 2 dates. There's your birth date and your death date. They said the most important number on there is not the birth date or the death date. It's the hyphen in between. It's where everything happens. And I can share some stories about Craig. I can share a lot of stories about Craig. We shared the same room. We were roommates, as Eric said. Um, he probably should have called me Bailey rather than Bailey because I bailed him out a lot of times. Um, I'll just share one quick story. He was in Phoenix and he was out of luck, and so he called me to come pick him up. And so we decided we were going to drive from Phoenix up to Troy's house. My older brother, they lived in Salt Lake. And we looked at the map and we said, and this was long before, Google Maps. It was paper map, the old 50 state atlas. So we looked and we're like, this road goes straight up to Utah. That'll be far quicker than this triangular road that we saw that was all freeway. Well, what we didn't realize was the map is not topographic. So there's a little gap in the map, and I couldn't figure out what that little gap was in the road until we got there. That was the Grand Canyon. Got to take a little detour around that. And we started driving up through Utah. The road's pretty short, except it kind of went up like this for about 5,000 feet, and then came down like this for 5,000 feet. Then did that. So we passed about 3 mountain passes. And we learned why people take the triangle over straight road. So I don't know why. Maybe this will mean something to somebody, but this is my second brother that's committed suicide. And sometimes we can't even say the word. We're afraid to say it. We can't even put it in our obituary. Like we make up like something that doesn't sound like suicide. And now I've got 2 brothers. As I said, I gave the car to Craig, and I was one paying for his gas, and he was nice enough to make sure that the car he gave him was the way that he took his own life, and it was the gas that I bought for him that he used to. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate that. Why are we all here? The worst part about Craig's death was I got a suicide note that he'd written, and I thought, well, this maybe will give it an insight into happened in his life. And his suicide note is nothing about him, it's about the few possessions he owned. Like my wallet goes here, this painting goes there, my car, if anyone wants it after I'm gone. I thought, oh, sad. And he valued these possessions that were probably a few $100s, but he didn't value his own life. I thought of the scripture. It's found in Corinthians. It says, 1 Corinthians 10, verse 13. There hath no temptation taken you, but such is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that which you are able. Most people usually stop there. They usually say, we won't get anything that we can't handle. God will make sure of that. And they forget to read the next one. But will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. I know that there's several people in this room that have had some hard things in their life. Craig whether it was his own choices or what life handed him. He had a rough life. But as you can see, these people that came up there, is it hyphen? Is it influence? Nobody was up here telling about all of the bad things Craig did. They talk about all of the influence that he had. Each one of you in this room has an influence. And I'm sorry, but there's going to be a time in your life when it's going to be more than you can bear. Whether it be health, finances. I've seen it happen to two of my brothers. So what does that scripture mean that God's going to provide an escape? I don't know. I think people can look at that other ways. Maybe that escape is a friend, a counselor. For me, that escape has been Jesus Christ. I do anesthesia, and I put in a lot of labor after women that are laboring. In my career, I've seen thousands of women in labor. I could go through the anatomy of it. I can tell you everything that's going on. I can see 2,000 more. I will never know what labor's like. And there's going to be situations in your life that people can empathize with you, might have gone through a situation. I can only know of one being in this universe that knows what each and every one of us faces every day. When Christ had his atonement, he experienced, I don't know how it works, but through the Spirit, he was able to experience what all of us experience. And he did it so he'd know how to help us. So I hope when we reach a point in our life, this scares me to death. I've had two brothers. I see my kids, I see my nieces and nephews. They struggle with depression, anxiety, and it scares me to death. It scares me to death. I suffer from depression and anxiety. I reach points where I think, I don't know what it is, but I know in whom I can trust. And I know Craig, he thought death was an escape. Death is never an escape, it's just a transition. We are immortal. We can escape this life, but the responsibility and the things that we do are still waiting for us in the next. And I don't know if we call that hell or heaven, but it's our choices and our acceptance of Jesus Christ that helps us there. And I know Craig, he's learning some new things. And I'm not his judge. I do miss him. I wish he could understand what an influence he's made here today. Because I don't think he understood that. And that's so sad. I hope all of you realize the influence that you have and everyone around you. I guarantee you, Craig was not perfect. I know for sure he was not perfect, but we're here today because he had an influence on us. And I'm grateful to know that he's my brother forever. And you know, and it's a sense of humor and if he was still alive, I probably would kind of kick him in the butt for why'd you do that, Craig?
But I'm this life was all it had to offer. This would be the biggest tragedy in the world. But I know that's not the case. We have purpose here, we have meaning, and that continues on. And I know that I'll see Craig again. And I know that even with Craig's shortcomings, I mean, if there's anything that you learn from Christ in his life, is he was always reaching out to people that we thought were throwaways. He showed mercy to the woman caught in adultery. He helped the man that was sitting by the well. Wasn't all centurion's sons and talking with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. If there's anything that Christ showed us, all have worth, we all have value. And I'm grateful for the time that I was able to spend with Craig. I say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Yeah, if you open mind, never done celebrate race.
Not quick one I'm gonna tell. And then people can just share small stories like this. So there's a time I went to Utah and Craig had his car and I was following in the truck. And she's already laughing because she knows what it is. And we're right about the Tremont exit. And Craig had his stereo in there and I was being too loud. And all of a sudden the truck started slowing. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I pulled over right by the old sugar factory and there was smoke coming out of the engine and fire coming out of the engine. I was looking at Craig, he just kept driving. And I finally walked to the rest area and called my parents and they're like, "Where's Craig?" And I said, "I have no idea." So my dad came down to the sugar house with my grandpa. Craig got to the house a couple hours later and my mom's like, "Where's Elliot?" "I don't know, I lost him somewhere." She's like, "Yeah, yeah, I told him to keep up." He was doing about 90, that's why. So that's just one of the great stories.
Hi, I'm Craig's niece, Cheyenne. I have not seen Craig in at least 10 years. Because I have a lot going on in my personal life and with my family that makes it so that we aren't able to travel much. But all that I can really remember about Craig is empathy. He was kind and tenderhearted, and that's all that really sticks in my mind. And when my mom used to tell me stories about him as a kid, because my dad is the oldest son, and so my mom knew all of my dad's brothers when they were young. And she said the thing that I always remember the most about Craig is that he was so kind and tenderhearted. He could not stand to see anyone hurt or anyone in pain, and even if he was the one that caused it, he then wanted to help make it better. Clint talked a little bit about suicide, and I am a very private person and don't tend to share, but I have a very strong feeling on my heart. I had a little something that I needed to share today. I have struggled with mental health issues for the majority of my life. I have diagnosed anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and ADHD. And I have spent many years battling with my mental health. And I have been where Craig was in that moment more than once. And so, speaking as someone who has been at the edge and can speak to that experience, all I could feel when I heard that Craig had taken his own life was just an outpouring of love and sadness for this man that was tired of fighting, that was exhausted, and that could not suffer anymore. And that's really all it was. When I was younger, I used to think that suicide was an option, and I don't believe that anymore. I believe that when you're in that moment, on the precipice, that you truly believe your world is travel with you. That you truly believe that you cannot perform one more day. And I am very, very lucky that I was able to pull myself out of that moment more than one time and continue forward. And I am now at the happiest I've gone through lots of therapy, and now at the happiest I've been in my life. But I know I have a strong testimony that this is not the end. There was one of those times when I was very close to taking my own life when I was in college. I was very lonely and very alone. And I had a very sacred experience with what I can only describe as my guardian angel man, Trent. My Trent and I share a birthday, and he loved me as a little girl. And I have had several experiences in my life where I truly believe that God has sent him as my guardian angel to take care of me in moments when I could not take care of myself. And I believe that God will use Craig that way as well, to come back to his family, to help his family in the moments where they cannot carry on. God will send someone that loves him. And I believe that he does that. And I know that we are not alone. We will make mistakes. Craig made mistakes, but he was infinitely loved. And all I can feel for him now is gratitude that he is no longer in pain, and sadness that he could not recognize in the moment that he was in how much people loved him and how much they wanted him and how much they wanted him here. So I just share that to say that I am so grateful for a God that lets us know that this is not the end, that there is learning and growth and repentance that happens beyond this life. We're all just doing the best that we can. We're all just fighting our own demons, and we are all doing the very best that we know how with the tools that we've been given. And Craig's tools that he had at that time failed him. But there is a life after this, and there is a life where Craig will be happy and no longer in pain. And so in that sense, I am so happy for him that he doesn't have to suffer anymore. And I am so sad that he left us all behind. But I am also positive that he's watching over us now, and that when we meet him, he'll be there. Because I have experienced people coming to rescue my life in moments where I did not think I could do it. And they were always members of my family that I knew. They knew I needed them. And I did. And I'm here. I'm here. I'm still here. And I'm so grateful I'm still here. I have a wonderful husband and beautiful children. And I thank God every day that I survived. I survived. But some don't. And that doesn't mean anything about their strength or their character as a person. He lost a battle. He lost a battle with one of the most difficult things to go through. And I hope that you can take any of you that may feel, if you ever are in that situation yourselves, that you may feel that there is always someone that you can reach out to. There is always a hand waiting. There is always someone willing to help. And I think that's the lesson that we should all take from Craig's death, is that we don't want to be at your funeral. We don't want to be sitting here crying in the audience. So you can call any of us. There is always a hand extended to help you, whether it is God's hand, whether it is the hand of your family and friends. We want you here. Please don't let us be at your funeral too. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Family is known for their scouting. I attended Craig's Eagle Scout invitation. He was a very good young lad at the time. I remember at scout camp when Craig and several other scouts was cooking bacon, and a lot of you, if you eat bacon, some can be really, really too crisp, and others is little I'm done, it's too much fat, but Craig can cook bacon. Perfect. And I really admired him, and I admire my brother's family and all the Eagle Scouts that they were. They were so good of people, and I can't say enough about them. And oh, I miss him.
Yeah, there's Eagle Scouts and uh, Craig, he liked to do things and I remember when he was in high school, he was getting ready to go to school, and he said, "Mom," he says, "what? After us kids go to school?" And she said, "Well, why do you ask that?" And he said, "Well, we milk the cow, clean the vacuum the floor, do the dishes." And she said, "Well, what do you think I do?" She said, "I think you're hooked on soap operas and pom poms." He didn't realize how much he had to do. And Craig was always, we used to, when we kids were younger, we'd have a secret Santa. We'd go around and put the gift on the door and knock and take off. So one time he was home with us and we just for he said, "We're gonna go to town." So we go to town for him. He said, "Get all these gifts." And so he went around to all these stuff in the morning and knock on the door and take off. And so he he was uh, very kind-hearted, and like you say, you really met him. And we're so thankful that all you people showed up to on this memorial of him, and he seemed like a grateful for a name like you guys. You know.
Well, my girls, Dominique and Henry, are both in California, and they said, "We want to be there because Craig was our favorite cousin." He would play Barbies with the girls and make doll clothes with them, but Craig was definitely a protector because he was enough years older than her. That when kids started picking on her, that he would stand up and he would defend her. And he was their favorite cousin. And when well, Patsy's kids and my kids kind of grew up all together, and we weren't sure whose house they were at. And if I was looking for my girls, they were probably at her house. And if I had to be somewhere or she had to be somewhere, then I had her boys at my house. And so it was kind of like they were kind of like family children. And I loved Craig. And when he's big, he gave the best bear hugs. I mean, here he is this big and he's wrapping me up in his arms and it's like, oh my gosh, and he gives me this huge bear hug. I miss that. I will always miss that. And Craig gave the best haircut. I can tell you that. I'm really particular about my hair. So Craig started cutting my hair after he had been to cosmetology school. And he would cut it wet. And then he would style it, dry it, and he would cut it dry. And it laid absolutely perfect. Well, now I go down to the hairdresser, they cut it wet. I come home, it's styled, and for the next 3 weeks I'm cutting chunks off because it doesn't look like quite right. I'm afraid to cut it down. And so when he was in Boise, he was a little short on pocket change. And he had a following of ladies here that he had cut their hair. So he would get on the bus and he would ride over, we would pick him up. He would come, he would cut hair all day long. and make money and stay with us, and we got to visit with him at night. And then we would take him over, put him on the bus so he could go back to Boise, and he had at least some money that he could, buy some stuff with, because as you know, Craig didn't have a lot of money most of the time. And when he left for Florida, it was really hard to watch him drive away. Because then he was no longer close to us. He's in New York, pretty destitute. And so I said, okay, can we send him a care package? Well, where he was living wasn't really the safest part of New York. It's in the Bronx somewhere, and it was okay. So I can send it on Amazon. They drop it off at his step, and if he doesn't pick it up right away, somebody's got it and it's gone. So I would text and say, okay, your Amazon package is on its way. So most of the time he would be able to get his Amazon package. If not, I would have to resend it. But anyhow, so then he had all this good stuff. Well, his friends were not in as good a position as he was. So he's sharing all of his stuff with just his care package so that he wouldn't be hungry. But that was Craig. Just a big, kind heart. So loving and kind. And I miss him.
Some of you may know me. My name is Chad Hinkley. I'm his cousin. And the biggest thing is when I was a sophomore in high school, all my friends were younger than I was. So my first year in high school was because I didn't really have a lot of friends. And, he always made sure that I was he welcomed. He always said hi to me. He always included me about. And he a couple years older than I was. He was senior when I was a sophomore. So that just made to me that year just a lot easier. It was a really hard time in my life. Struggling. He helped me. Just breathing. And the third person was me. Very good simply. I gave him full inclusion. At nice school. He'd say hi to me. Then all these the nerdy cousins. Even him, always included me. So appreciate
Know how to put this mic a little bit higher. I feel like the majority of the people here, you need to bend down a little bit. But thankfully, we've all been blessed with big, booming voices, so it makes up for the difference. My name is Coulter Hinkley, and Craig was my uncle. And I just have a couple memories of Craig, but they still stick out in my mind. I was forgotten. They're those memories that stick in your head that you remember really well, that you can still see. You remember exactly what everything looked like. The first one was that drawing over there that was made by my Uncle Craig and me. And I remember I was asking my Uncle Craig, he was at my grandparents' house, and I was asking him about my Uncle Trent. And, oh, well, I really understood what happened to him and things like that. So Uncle Craig was kind of telling me about that. And we were talking about drawing a picture of everybody and for my grandma. And so Craig was really talented with art. I could hold a coloring pencil. So we thought that was a good trade-off. And so Craig would draw and kind of tell, oh, we'll make him skinnier, And Craig said, well, I got to be the muscliest one. So he drew himself with big muscles. And then Then I said, "Oh, my dad's a little bit bigger than that. I need to push him out a little bit." And I think we got it pretty accurate to the time. I think Elliot's a little bit less skinny than he was there in that photo now. I just remember love drawing that. And I remember vividly, still in my head, sitting in my grandma's living room and drawing it and coloring it and picking out the colored pencils, and it's a really fond memory. And I feel like we need to recreate that photo at some point. We'll have two little angels now, which would be really sweet. The other memory I have of Craig is I remember one time, it was around the winter time. I can't remember exactly when I was a kid. Um, and I was over at my grandma's house, and Craig was there. When I was a kid, I would go over to my grandma's house for the weekend, and we'd take out the president's cookbook, and we'd make our favorite cookies out of the cookbook. And so I believe I was there for one of those weekends during the winter. And Craig was there, and it snowed, and I really wanted to go out and make a snowman. And I'm sure Grandma and Grandpa were really excited about that, but Craig was like, "Yes, let's go out and make a snowman." And so we went outside, and um, we made what in my mind was this beautiful, beautiful snowman. Um, and I remember going in, and Craig said, "I think we need some hot chocolate." I just remember thinking, he is so smart. Hot chocolate sounds incredible right now, doesn't it? um, and when I was at my grandparents' house yesterday, they had the picture of me and Craig and making the snowman. And what I thought was this beautiful snowman just kind of looks like a big pile of lumps. Snowman typically have the 3 sections, and this had about 12, and it just, kind of this pile of lumps that went up, but it vaguely resembled something upright. And we both had big smiles on our faces, and Craig's was even a lot bigger than mine. It was just a cool memory um, that we had together. Although I remember writing to Craig on my mission, um, I could send emails to him and so we'd send emails back and forth. I sent an email at Christmas, and a couple weeks later, he sent it to my dad. My dad would send it back to me, and I hear back. Um, After he passed away, I remember looking through my phone and looking at the text from Craig, and he did do exactly like Elliot said. He would always say, "Happy Christmas and have a wonderful day." And there was 5 emojis, and sometimes they'd stay consistent, but he'd change them. And I think back to that. And, I remember as younger kids, we didn't always understand the lifestyle that Craig lived. We didn't always understand that life isn't as easy as it is when you're 10. And so sometimes we make jokes, and be like, "Oh, Craig, this silly uncle." And I look back at now, and I just wish I understood better as I've gone through my adult life a little bit and experienced some more difficult things. I wish I would have understood a little bit better what it's like to be an adult and have to struggle with certain things. And if he was still here, I would want to apologize to him for the little jokes I made over the years, because I see now more all the wonderful things that he did. Um, when I was sitting down there, while I was on my mission, I got really into writing poems. It was just one of my pastimes that I liked doing. As I was thinking about Craig these past couple weeks, and I've got a little bit of a habit recently of trying to keep it in and stay strong and kind of, put on a happy face. But in those quiet moments, I thought about it a little bit more. And this poem that I wrote my mission really stuck out to me, and I can't help but feel that Craig is in this position now where he can feel the love of Jesus Christ. So I wanted to share this with all of you. um, and hopefully I can make it through, but I think it'll be really sweet. It's called "The Heart Has Two Handles." A heart has two handles, one on either side. Only two hands can hold a heart at once during this earthly ride. Both my hands held fast, gripping them so tight. If anyone new tried to grab a hold of them, I would surely fight. Pushed away and rejected, I had never felt so low. Not until the wicked one tempted me. Come on, just one handle, let go. He was disguised as a man dressed very fine. His dark glass eyes peeped through his coat. Although a twisted white grin masked his face, his cunning words remained empty and blunt. Whether naive or intrigued, I still concluded, just one handle, all loose in my grip. Sadly, he was not looking to comfort at all, but all of my dignity to strip. Flash, he seized the handle and ran, tormenting my heart with guilt and woe. By one handle I was dragged, wherever the wicked man wanted to go. A scene unfolded as I pried and pulled, a flash of pride and a spew. There in both our hands sat half a heart, ripped clean in two. As the wicked one danced off with his newfound prize, I fell to the ground, consumed by fear. Now who will ever love me? I cried. I wish to simply disappear. My child, a voice called out above my head, I will fix you. You will see. Let go of your side, kid. I'll take it if you let me. As I lifted my head out of the slump, I cast my eyes on the man above. Though a simple sight, one thing remained, the biggest smile, beaming with love. His short brown beard framed his tawny attire. He was a traveled man, acquainted with grief. Poking out of his sleeves were two scarred hands, experienced enough to provide relief. Thinking of my prior experience, I stood, spent, at the end of my rope. Yet in this man I just barely met, I felt a little flicker of hope. I looked him in the eyes and humbly asked, how can you make a broken thing a work of art? I've known how for a long time, kid, he said. I am the keeper of your heart. Regardless of my unworthiness, or how long I'd been adrift, I gingerly placed my heart at his feet, desperately needing his gift. He took that offering, that piece of heart, all broken, bleeding, and bruised, and with a smile and a wink and a wave of his hand, it became a full heart, made just like new. Why, Mr. Keeper, sir, I said, my perfect works have been less than few. Because I've been through what you've been through, he responded. I made you. I didn't intend for you to be perfect, or even to be better than all the rest. But these indents that mark my palms seem to be the place where the heart fits best. My child, you must understand, you're a trophy in the eyes of the perpetrator of pain. But I love each heart I collect, whether it be broken, blind, or lame. That day I walked away empty-handed, but oddly I didn't feel alone. He holds both handles of my heart, and I could be more at home. I can't help but feel like Craig walked around for a while with half my heart. And that's just kind of sometimes the way life goes. It's a little messy and it's a little imperfect, and that's something I'm learning more as I get older. But it doesn't have to stay that way. And I feel a lot of comfort in the fact that Craig's in a situation now where he's with somebody who can excuse me, just like new. And he can do it for Craig. He can do it for me. And I can do it for all of us. And that was really impactful to me. Um, I'm grateful for the memories that I was able to share with Craig. I'm grateful for the snowman that we were able to make and the drawings we were able to draw. And I feel like he inspired me as a young child to be very creative. And I'm blessed that I still utilize to this day. I'm grateful now for the atonement of Jesus Christ that he provided this experience for all of us. This is the second semester in a row when I've lost an aunt or uncle, it makes it really hard. But what makes it easier is to know that I'm gonna get to see him again someday. And that brings me a lot of peace. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. I debated even coming up here because I truthfully only have two memories of Craig that are clear in my head. One of which is when he showed up to my basketball game, and I said, "Mom, who's this guy who's looking at me?" And she said, "That's your Uncle Craig." And I said, "I have an Uncle Craig." And but the one thing that I remember from that, and the image is plain as day, is his smile. He was smiling so genuine at me, and I knew that this was somebody who cared about me, just from the way that he looked at me, from the way that he introduced himself. Second memory that I have is I remember complaining to my mom all the time about how my hair was really hard to style, and how none of the barbers could cut it right. And Craig overheard me and was like, "All right, give me a shot." And it was one of my favorite haircuts that I've ever had. Um, the interesting thing about this situation and how it has affected me is that most of what I know about my Uncle Craig comes from stories from my dad and stories that I've heard from my uncles. I specifically remember one family reunion, my uncles sitting around the fire and telling stories. And every story that came up that involved Craig always brought out a lot of laughter in them. And I thought, I wish I had known this person who brought so much joy into the lives of others a little bit more. I'm probably the only one of my siblings who didn't get to know him quite as much. And I remember when I got the news, it was the morning of my birthday. I just got off of a flight, one of the longest flights of my life. It was also one of the toughest days of my life. And I remember when I took my phone off of airplane mode and I saw that text, and it hit me really hard. And I thought, why did this hit me so hard? I didn't know Craig as well as some others did. And I realized through hearing the stories that other people have told me about him, that it's because his life, the struggles, the triumphs, reminded me a lot of things that I had gone through. And I remember my dad told me so many times with my other uncle, Trent. He said, "You remind me so much of my brother. You remind me so much of my brother." And I remember when people talk about Craig, I was like, I connected a lot with that too. And so I thought in one of my lowest moments that the reason why this hit me so hard is because I hate to see somebody who I knew had such a genuine, kind, helping soul. I hate to see that somebody like that could lose faith in tomorrow, next day. Because the only thing that separates me or really any of us from being in that position is just a few different turns or paths in our lives. And I thought, and I truly believe, that those who pass before their time will still be given an opportunity in the afterlife to represent the ideals that they held in life. But I thought, God, right now is really tough for me. And I'm witnessing the loss of somebody in my family who was also struggling a lot at the same time. And I said, I don't know if this is how it
I said, please. Please give me the opportunity to feel closer to my uncle in the afterlife, if he is willing to be here and to help me through my trials, that I can learn from this experience. And that is how I felt with my Uncle Fred, even though I did not know him at all. I was way too young. But I've always felt through prayer that when I asked and feel with my guardian angels surrounding me, that those who had come before me were there watching over me and had their hands on my shoulders. And so, when it had been a really awful day, one of the hardest days of my life, I felt like it was made a little easier because I felt surrounded by one more hand. And I'm sad I didn't get to know him more. But I am excited to meet him in the next life. And I'm sure that he'll have a lot to tell me about how he was rooting all of us on with the same kind of genuine love that he did in life. Thank you.
We're gonna have to close this so that we can eat. There is enough food here to feed all of Louisville. So please stay and enjoy it with us. And fill out a rock over there if you've got any memory of Craig's or pencils over there, markers, put them in the little box. We're gonna bury them, bury these thoughts that you have with him. But thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting us. And a happy, fun time. And with Craig and all of the joy that he brought to us. And are grateful for your presence here, showing your support. And we're going to have our grandchildren get up and sing I Am a Child of God. And Eric, who's going to give the closing prayer? Got that one down there? Oh, he was in charge by me. Yeah. And let's give a closing prayer. Okay. So.
Program. You want to sing your niece or nephew, Craig, help and sing with us. I'm just gonna pull up the background track here up on my phone. And then it's like there's no way that you can watch over again. Some of the thoughts. Specifically. Three or more. I want to say all three Christmases. Thanks. Let's go.
I would say that we come here to be able to celebrate Craig's life. Thank you for the influence that he's had on all of us. Hope him that he can be able to be happy with me. Help us that we can be able to continue to feel with the spirit. That we can be able to continue his legacy and that we can be able to treat people kindly. That we can be selfless. And we can live the way that he did. Please bless the food that we're about to have and make sure we can all come here together that we can be able to spend time with each other and that we can reflect on Christ's life. And in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Amen.